Melissa's nose job. Nightmare. How she lost half of her nose. Hello and welcome back to our channel. Have you ever felt compelled by your society's beauty standards to change a feature about yourself? Imagine you're walking into a clinic for a quick, non-surgical procedure to improve a small facial feature and walk out feeling like you look better. But little did you know it would leave your life forever changed. Melissa wanted a subtle change to her nose, but instead ended up losing a whopping half of it. What began as a fantasy to gain confidence in her appearance quickly shifted into a nightmare that no one could have expected. What was supposed to be a successful filler surgery became a nightmare. This nightmare left her fighting to get her appearance and self-esteem back. Melissa grew up in a Filipino family where beauty standards played a major role in shaping her insecurities. She was weighed down by society's expectations from an early age and was always reminded of how she was supposed to look. In Filipino culture, having a tall nose bridge is often seen as more attractive, and Melissa, with her flatter nose, felt out of place. As she was from a Filipino family, beauty standards were deeply ingrained into her idea of self. There's a long history of fascination in Filipino culture with Western features like fair skin, tall noses, slim figures. The country has a colonial past where Spanish, American, and other foreign influences left an unfortunate legacy of desires in the public to look more Western, and hence, more beautiful. Thus, many Filipinos, particularly women, are under pressure to fit in these beauty standards, even if they do not have the natural features for it. From commercials to informal discussions, there is a subtle yet ubiquitous pressure that pushes women towards unattainable standards. A practice in Filipino households is tugging or pinching a baby's nose to make it taller as it grows. Melissa's mother also gently pinched her nose growing up, and it was something her mother used to do out of love. But over time, it could have been the very reason that led to Melissa's growing insecurity with her appearance. Melissa wanted to fit in with the beauty ideals of her culture, and so her desire to do so grew as she got older. The natural feature of many Filipinos, her flatter-than-normal nose, began to feel like a flaw that made her stand out. Melissa couldn't stop feeling that she wasn't good enough. Growing up in a culture where Western beauty standards were the norm, Melissa felt the light but constant pressure to fit in. But what happens when that pressure becomes too much? Over time, her desire to fit in and conform to these standards only grew stronger. She chose a non-surgical nose job after the birth of her son and her husband's deployment. No surgery, no recovery time, just a quick injection, a promise of the nose bridge she'd always wanted. It had all seemed like the perfect solution. What could go wrong, right? With so many success stories floating around on social media, Melissa believed this was the safest path to achieving her dream look. Yet what was marketed as a safe and temporary fix soon became a medical disaster. Would you risk your well-being for the sake of reaching perfection? The first sign of a complication showed up within 24 hours of the injections. Melissa's nose started to show white pustules, meaning that her blood wasn't flowing to her nose. Panic set in immediately. This wasn't just a bad reaction. This was a full-blown medical emergency. She rushed to the ER where doctors confirmed her worst fear. The blood supply to her nose had been cut off by the filler, but the damage was done. Melissa underwent 20 to 30 injections of hyaluronidase over the course of the next few days to dissolve the filler. But it was too late. The tissue of her nose died slowly and became disfigured. Losing part of her nose was devastating, but it wasn't just her appearance that was affected. It was her confidence and her sense of self. Can you ever truly heal from that? But Melissa refused to give up and opted for reconstructive surgery as she was determined to rebuild her life and appearance. And it was long and painful. The operation had grafts taken from her body to restore her nose. Despite the surgery, the results were still not what she wanted. How do you recover when the thing that was supposed to make you feel better about yourself ends up making you worse? However, Melissa refused to give up. She turned to the famous plastic surgeon Dr. Paul Nassif for guidance. Dr. Nassif explained the risks, but also assured her that he would try his best to get Melissa's nose back to life. The surgery was difficult, but Melissa was willing to suffer to feel herself again. Melissa's road to recovery was slow, but part by part, she started to see her nose and her confidence return. But her struggle wasn't just with physical pain. It was the emotional weight that Melissa carried day in and day out. Melissa said that when she looked at herself in the mirror, she was reminded of the irreparable damage that was done. The filler hadn't just taken her appearance, it had taken her self-worth. In the world of beauty obsession, Melissa was wondering who she was. Rebuilding her nose was hard enough, but rebuilding her confidence was perhaps the hardest. Matt, her husband, who had been deployed during the initial nightmare, was relegated to being her support from afar. On his return, he discovered a wife who was no longer the confident woman that he had known. Instead, she second-guessed herself in every decision and asked for reassurance on every decision, big or small. It was a shadow of who she used to be, and both she and Matt felt the growing distance between them. Matt was deeply affected, as well as the toll the experience had taken on Melissa was clear. He'd missed the vibrant, independent woman Melissa had been before the surgery. Her nose wasn't the only thing she needed to heal. It was their relationship that quietly suffered under her insecurity. But Matt always stood by Melissa, supporting her through her darkest days. Even though their relationship bore the weight of her emotional scars, as Melissa met Dr. Nassif, she felt hope again. Rebuilding her nose could also be the key to rebuilding her ruptured bond with her husband. This is why when Melissa met Dr. Nassif, she had a feeling that she was taking the first steps towards her new life. Dr. Nassif was very well known for fixing cases like hers, but he didn't sugarcoat the risks. It was going to be a long road and a very uncertain one. He said he could attempt reconstructing her nose, but it would never be guaranteed. Another complication could occur. Her nose might not look like she wanted it. The gamble was worth it, she reasoned, because for Melissa, the chance to regain even a fraction of the person she used to be was worth it. In the surgery, rib cartilage was used to give her nose structure, and skin grafts were used to restore the area where necrosis had occurred. On the day of the surgery, Melissa was hopeful and fearful. Was this the moment when her nightmare ended? Was it going to give more heartache? The journey was far from over when Melissa emerged from the operating room. The recovery was grueling. It stretched on for weeks of swelling, bruising, and post-surgical care. There were some doubts and moments when she saw purple discoloration in the early stage of healing, which indicated a vascular issue. Every glance at the bruising made her wonder, what if this nightmare never truly ends? It was like reliving the horror of the past all over again. But Dr. Nassif had remained cautiously optimistic through it all, saying healing takes time. And slowly, it happened. The swelling went down. The purple hue began to fade. Her nose, while not perfect, was beginning to look like something she could live with. A feature that no longer marked her misery, but was becoming a symbol of her resilience. Melissa started to see a look of her old self, the woman who had been such an outgoing, fearless person. The physical changes were just what defined her transformation. It was Melissa's return to who she used to be. With time, her confidence grew. She wasn't afraid of going out in public anymore. She didn't need to hide her face behind scarves or heavy makeup. She stopped fearing her friends and family would see her as damaged. Her relationship with Matt started to heal too. Slowly, the distance that had come between them, based on Melissa's insecurities, started to shrink. Each day, Melissa became more and more independent, trusting herself to make decisions on her own. Matt noticed this, and it breathed new life into their marriage. She had become stronger, more determined, more self-assured than ever before. No longer was she the hesitant, self-doubting woman she had been after the botched procedure. This journey wasn't just personal for Melissa. Her story became a lesson for safer cosmetic procedures. So she became an advocate and started sharing her story so others could learn from her experience. She wanted to make sure no one else went through what she did, and raised awareness about the risks that can come with something seemingly harmless as a filler injection. She knew her story could help save others from making the same mistake she made. Her transformation wasn't just about her nose. It was about finding her voice again. She began speaking out, not only about the dangers of cosmetic procedures, but also about self-acceptance and the pressures society places on women to look a certain way. Melissa's experience had taught her that true beauty isn't about a perfect nose or flawless skin. It's about resilience, strength, and the ability to rise after being knocked down. Today, Melissa's nose still isn't perfect, but it's hers. And more importantly, it's a reminder of her incredible journey. A journey that began with the hope of a simple enhancement, spiraled into a medical nightmare, and ultimately ended in a story of courage and self-reclamation. She no longer strives for perfection because she's learned that perfection is an illusion. What she gained instead was far more valuable: a sense of peace with herself and the strength to move forward. Melissa's journey is a stark reminder of the risks that come with chasing perfection. Her story goes beyond physical scars and tells us about the importance of self-acceptance. If her experience resonated with you, share this video to spread awareness about the potential dangers of cosmetic procedures. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of transformation, inspiration, and empowerment stories. Stay tuned, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that help us see beauty in a whole new light.